Thank you everyone for being here today. If you can take your seats, we'll get started. Welcome to this year's Racing Safety and Integrity Briefing. This year, in addition to having representation, of course, from the Breeders' Cup as we head into the World Championships, we also have HISA CEO Lisa Lazarus and HAWU Executive Director Ben Mosier. But we'll get started first on this end of the table with Keeneland President and CEO Shannon Arvin. So Shannon, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Keeneland is honored to host the Breeders' Cup World Championships for the third time, and we extend a warm welcome to the racing participants from across the country and around the world. Keeneland was founded with the mission to put the best interest of the horse first and to create a model racetrack to perpetuate and improve the sport, and to provide a course that is intended to serve as a symbol of the fine traditions of thoroughbred racing. We are a company formed by horsemen for horsemen. We do what we do for the love of the horse. In fulfillment of our mission, Keeneland has stood by the Breeders' Cup under the leadership of Drew Fleming at the forefront of safety and integrity reforms and initiatives that better racing at both state and national levels. Keeneland stands united with the authority created by the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act and supports its goal to create national uniform rules that promote safety and integrity. We applaud the hard work by Lisa Lazarus and her team at HISA and HAWU, and we believe their work is critical to the bright future of our sport. Keeneland has a long history of investing in state-of-the-art technology and expertise to provide safe and consistent racing surfaces, supporting health and welfare research, funding thoroughbred aftercare, and promoting transparency and study. Our team members at every level are committed to our sport and the safety of the thoroughbred. Under the leadership of Vice President of Equine Safety, Dr. Stuart Brown, Keeneland deploys innovative strategies that further strengthen its safety protocols. Collaborative efforts with Keeneland's horsemen and their attending veterinarians who monitor every horse in training at Keeneland. Our Vice President of Racing, Gatewood Bell, and Dr. Brown also coordinate closely with Director of Racing Services Jim Pendergast and Dr. Mick Peterson, Director of the University of Kentucky's Ag Equine Program and the co-founder of the Racing Surfaces Testing Laboratory, to apply the latest science and technology to maintain the safest racing surfaces possible. And Alfredo Laureano, our track superintendent, lives on the grounds and is often seen in the middle of the night working on the track to be sure that it's safe for morning training. Our commitment to safety and welfare embodies a far-reaching program that incorporates teams across our organization, across our industry, and touches all aspects of racing and training. We are fully prepared to support the robust safety protocols in place for the Breeders' Cup World Championships and look forward to a tremendous weekend of racing at the highest level. And now I will turn it over to my friend, CEO of the Breeders' Cup, Drew Fleming.
Thanks, Shannon. It's good to see everyone here today. Thank you for being with us. It probably doesn't get said enough, but we're incredibly grateful for all the journalists in the room today and those watching via our live stream for your dutiful coverage of our great sport and all you do to promote thoroughbred racing. It's also so great to be back at Keeneland for the 39th running of the Breeders' Cup World Championships. We couldn't be more excited for our World Championships that are shortly underway in just a few short days, and for very grateful that all the best horses and horsemen from around the world are here in Lexington, Kentucky, the horse capital of the world. Keeneland's such a special place, and I'm incredibly grateful for the partnership and the collaboration we have, which has flourished under Shannon's leadership. One of the best things about Keeneland is that we can be incredibly confident that they share our commitment to prioritizing the safety of our equine athletes and the integrity of our sport above all else. As the industry's premier thoroughbred racing event, the Breeders' Cup has been avid and constant in our support of enhanced efforts to protect our horses and instill greater confidence in racing. Alongside Keeneland and many other leaders in the sport, we pushed for the passage of the legislation that created the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority, or HISA, to implement new federal horse racing standards that are already raising the bar for safety and integrity nationwide. Breeders' Cup has long had in place a set of standard-setting safety and integrity protocols, which you'll hear about shortly from Dora. But now we can be confident that our shared commitment to integrity and safety will extend beyond the 2 best days in racing to every thoroughbred track and race in the country. The future looks very bright. We're also grateful for the work of everyone involved in making HISA a reality. It has taken a lot of hard work, not just from Lisa Lazarus and her team at HISA and HAWU, who you'll hear about shortly, but also from our horsemen, track operators, stewards, state racing commissions, and so many others across the United States. In the months since HISA has taken effect, it's been encouraging to see racing participants from coast to collaborate with HISA on how best to implement the new racetrack safety rules and plans for the implementation of the anti-doping and medication control program in just a few short months. This year will mark the first time the Breeders' Cup will run under HISA's racetrack safety program, and it truly does feel as though this is the beginning of a new era of safety and integrity for our sport. We have much hard work ahead of us, but I'm proud of how far we've come and how we're working together as an industry to get here. It's great to know that the future of our sport is in good hands. Now I'll turn it over to our very own Chief Racing Officer, Dora Delgado, who will discuss what we're doing to ensure a safe and clean Breeders' Cup World Championships. Thank you all again for being here.
Great, thank you, Drew. I want to start off by thanking the Keeneland Equine Safety Team of Dr. Stuart Brown and Dr. George Mundy, the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission team led by Dr. Bruce Howard and Dr. Nick Smith, and of course Dr. William Farmer and Dr. Deborah Lamparter, who lead our Breeders' Cup veterinary group. The efforts to make sure all of our equine athletes are in peak physical condition for training and racing is a cohesive, combined, and collaborative effort among all veterinarians, track safety crews, and track surface teams. The Breeders' Cup has led the industry in creating and implementing the highest standards in safety, security, and integrity, and we are so pleased that HISA is bringing uniformity in these areas across the country. A key component of this effort is our out-of-competition testing program, which began in May and targeted challenge winners and possible starters from around the world. With the assistance of multiple racing jurisdictions, including California, Delaware, Florida, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Canada, samples were also collected in 4 international jurisdictions, including England, France, Ireland, and Japan. In all, nearly 250 blood samples and 100 hair samples were collected and analyzed. All North American Breeders' Cup out-of-competition testing was performed by the UC Davis Maddie Equine Analytical Chemistry Laboratory. International samples collected were analyzed by that jurisdiction's official laboratory, all of which are FEI-accredited labs. With nearly 85% of all results reported to date, no negative analytical findings have been reported. The second piece of our integrity program is our mandatory security check-in and surveillance program, which requires every championship runner to arrive no later than 11 a.m. on Tuesday, November 1st. From that moment, they were placed under a 24-hour surveillance by a team of security officers, equine investigators, and a high-definition camera system. Every visit to a stall by a private veterinarian is accompanied by an equine investigator, and no person may enter a barn unless they are on an approved list provided by the trainer. Third, the multiple examinations of horses during training in the week leading up to race day. Every horse must perform a mandatory jog or trot up under veterinary watch prior to training or racing on any surface at Keeneland. They must have their attending veterinarian attest to their fitness to race, and they undergo several physical exams in the barn. Keeneland has an amazing video capture system featuring 11 articulated cameras and can isolate and review any horse on any surface, including barns, horse paths, and the paddock, which is so beneficial for our veterinary review panel to have access to for their daily meetings. On Tuesday, November 1st, all 176 horses entered, including the also eligibles, underwent pre-competition testing as an added anti-doping integrity measure. These samples were collected by the Kentucky Horse Racing veterinarians and analyzed by the UK Equine Analytical Chemistry Lab, which is the official lab of the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. All results of those tests will be reported to the KHRC prior to scratch time for each race day. Friday scratch time is 8 a.m., and Saturday scratch time is 8 a.m. on Saturday. All races, including the undercard on Friday and Saturday, will be run without race day medication. The Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, Keeneland, and Breeders' Cup veterinarians have collaborated and developed a comprehensive injury management protocol which covers all areas of the racetrack for any possible incident in training or racing and will be implemented as a joint response effort. Approximately 20 Breeders' Cup or Kentucky Racing Commission veterinarians will be positioned in the paddock and on the racetrack and will closely observe horses to the starting gate and at various points around the racetrack. 4 equine ambulances are positioned for immediate response. And of course, as Shannon mentioned, Keeneland has a great racing surface team here. Dr. Brown coordinates closely with the Director of Services, Jim Pendergast, who with track superintendent Alfredo Laureano oversees the dirt, turf, and all-weather tracks at Keeneland and employs the most advanced racetrack technology and research available through the expert efforts of Dr. Mick Peterson. Daily inspection and testing of the dirt and turf course include penetrometer, going stick, and moisture measures on the turf and moisture and cushion depth on the dirt track. The speed and operation of every piece of equipment on the track is monitored, and weather data is logged at 15-minute intervals. Dr. Bruce Howard is the Equine Medical Director for the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, and he's going to summarize the important medication and horse health requirements in Kentucky.
Thanks, Dora. It's great to be back at Keeneland and with Breeders' Cup. This is a great place to host this event. In 2019, the KHRC passed some major medication changes. The biggest of these were moving NSAID administration out to 48 hours from post time, a 14-day stand down on intra-articular corticosteroid injections, and a severe restriction on bisphosphonates, to name a few. All of these allow us to examine horses, we feel, in a more drug-free state and be able to determine the health of these horses and be able to truly evaluate them. I would direct anyone that needs to look at our medication with withdrawal times or restrictions to the KHRC website at khrc.ky.gov. We have a full listing there under the Equine Health tab. Also, I can be reached. My phone number is listed there. Dr. Nick Smith would be a resource for any veterinarians or trainers who have questions on any of these medications and when they have to be withdrawn. But these are basically the same as when we ran Breeders' Cup here in 2020, so there's been no change. Everyone should be used to the changes that we have made. Post-race testing, we will be taking a minimum of 4 horses from every race to the test barn. It can be more at the steward's discretion. We attempt to do paired sampling of urine and blood samples on all horses. Proud to say that in Kentucky we have over a 98% rate of paired sample collection. So we have a very good team that's able to collect the urine and the blood. We'll ship samples to the lab each night after racing and should have preliminary results back early next week. Other pre-race testing that will go on besides the out-of-competition testing that Dora already mentioned is we will be doing TCO2 testing at the collection barn prior to horses going to the paddock. And I think that's all I've got.
Thank you all. At this point, we're going to pause for a little bit and take some questions specifically about the Breeders' Cup's protocols. So any questions that you have for Drew, Shannon, Dora, or Dr. Howard, you can raise your hand at this time and Mackenzie will bring you a microphone.
Thank you. I guess I'll direct this to Dora or to whoever's best suited to answer. I'm curious, the CHRB last year, Dora, had a review of the Modern Games erroneous scratch and came away with some takeaways. I'm curious if the Breeders' Cup team did as well, had a review of what led to that erroneous scratch, and if so, what were the primary takeaways?
Yeah, I'll take this. So the CHRB obviously did their own investigation and addressed their communication issues. Breeders' Cup works closely with the CHRB and I think reviewed their conclusions. We also have a close relationship with the KHRC, and we'll work to continue to make sure we have great communication.
One of the things that CHRB Executive Director Scott Cheney said last year was that it was his belief that there were perhaps too many cooks in the kitchen, where it was the words that he said. There was some different communication with the stewards, with the vet that called the scratch of modern games. Is there a procedure in place so that the Kentucky stewards are dealing with one particular veterinarian, or could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think some of the confusion we should not have here in Kentucky. There's a different rule between California and Kentucky. A horse that breaks through the gate in California is a mandatory scratch. In Kentucky, the horses are reviewed and examined by the veterinarians to determine if they're suitable for racing before they would call that in. Dr. Nick Smith, our chief racing vet, will be at the starting gate for all of the starts. We've operated under this rule as long as we've been doing this, and so all horses will be examined if they go through the front of the gate. If it's determined they're okay to race, they'll be allowed to go back in. If there is going to be a scratch, he communicates with the stewards, but he will be the only person talking to the stewards from the starting gates.
Very good, thank you. And then my last question was, you all were chatting a little bit before about the various safety protocols in terms of medical treatment and logs of people in the barns and so forth. I'm curious, is there a log of ointments, creams, things of that nature that might be used by trainers leading up to the Breeders' Cup?
All the medications we have listed on our website. They can be referenced, and I think most of the trainers and all the veterinarians here in Kentucky that practice are familiar with that. As far as, we have requested 30 days of medication records from all these horses. I've been going through those as they've been coming in, so hopefully we'll avoid any problems that way.
I was just curious. Obviously, we had that rather high-profile incident with Medina Spirit from a year and a half ago, and that obviously is at the forefront of a lot of legal cases lately. So, anyway, I was just curious if that was part of the program. I'll pass the phone or the microphone to Frank, who I think has his hand raised.
Hi, Dora. Could you elaborate just a little bit of the benefits of having Keeneland's video system in place, this high-tech video system that they got in place fully ahead of this meet? What does that mean for an event like this with some of those capabilities?
I actually got a chance to spend a little time with it yesterday, and to say it's amazing is probably an understatement. I mean, the camera quality and the capture of being able to isolate a particular horse on the racetrack when there could be 200 horses out there is just remarkable. This would be a gold standard that tracks should follow. The cameras are literally everywhere and can get multiple different angles. Dr. Stuart Brown is here in the audience, and he and George have developed this and would be the best person to speak on it. But from my point of view, having those videos available to our Breeders' Cup veterinary team on any horse that we believe needs to go on a watch list just for further review has just been an incredible opportunity to implement that tool in our arsenal.
I know Santa Anita has a similar system. Drew or Dora, is this something that Breeders' Cup will look at in future years in choosing host sites? Is it something that possibly could be mandatory, or at the very least would be a plus?
Well, I mean, nothing's off the table with us, and obviously we're excited about it. Very pleased with Keeneland, and very pleased with Santa Anita, and we'll continue to make that a priority.
Shannon, what were some of the reasons Keeneland thought it was important to make this investment?
Dr. Brown and I spent a lot of time talking about it, although I have to say it wasn't a very difficult decision. I mean, our mission is what's best for the horse, and it was very clear that having those tools at our fingertips would go a long way to making our track and barns the safest they could possibly be.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. Okay, with that, we will move on to hearing a little bit from Lisa and Ben on the latest on HISA and HAWU. Lisa, take it away.
Thank you, Liz, and thanks to all the panelists. I'm delighted to be here today. It's really a privilege. Kentucky is obviously a phenomenal state for horse racing, and Keeneland is top of class. January 1, 2023 will not only be the start of a new year, but it will be the beginning of a new era in racing. For the first time, we will have all 28 or so jurisdictions that run thoroughbred races operating under one set of uniform anti-doping rules. And what does that mean? It means a lot of things, but I think the most critical points to be aware of are every single sample will be analyzed for the exact same substances across every jurisdiction, and we'll be working with the laboratories to make sure that they're all reporting positive results at the same levels. So, it's one thing to have uniform rules, but having uniform implementation is really important to make sure you have a generally uniform system. I think stakeholders, racing participants, this is what everyone's been waiting for, and we're going to be able to deliver that on January 1. There are 14 states that are racing January 1, and HIWU, as I'll talk about in a moment, is very, very deep in preparations to deliver that program come January 1. A little bit about kind of how we got here and the nuts and bolts of the program. As some of you may recall, in May of this year, HISA appointed the Center for the Drug-Free Sport International to be the independent anti-doping agency for HISA. Now, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act requires that the anti-doping agency, enforcement agency, be entirely independent from the authority. And so we appointed Drug-Free Sport International to take on that role, and together we created the Horse Racing Integrity and Welfare Unit, which will be the entity that actually operates the anti-doping program. So HISA, through its ADMC Standing Committee, creates and promulgates the rules, and then we take the rules in that system, once they're approved by the Federal Trade Commission, and we expect that to happen in short order. We then hand over those rules in that program to HIWU, and they actually implement the program. And what's great about that is that you have genuine independence, impartiality across all of the states. You have consistent enforcement, consistent adjudication. You'll see that cases will be decided quickly, or at least a lot quicker than you're used to. They'll be decided through an arbitration system and an appeal system through the FTC process, not in state courts. And the importance of that uniformity, we really believe, is going to be a game changer for horse racing. It's important, obviously, as we enter into this era, that we have cooperation from the states, from the racetracks. And I'll say that, since we've gotten started with the racetrack safety program, that cooperation is sort of getting better and better every day. Understandably, anything new and sort of completely transformational takes some time and takes kind of fixing a little bit of trial and error, but what we've been able to do on the racetrack safety program and understand the nuances of each state, how different racetracks operate, that's put us in a much better position for a smooth and consistent rollout of the anti-doping program. The importance of HIWU's independence can't be overstated. The industry deserves a level playing field. It deserves everyone and every horse treated the same, and it deserves uniform enforcement. And I'm really excited to be a part of making that happen. I am grateful that this Drug-Free Sport International agreed to come on board and run the anti-doping program for us. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Ben, who will tell you a little bit more about the operations and what HIWU is doing for the industry.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to applaud everyone on this panel for all the efforts you've taken for this event. I look forward to working with you in 23 as we collaborate together on all the safety initiatives and testing initiatives that you all take. We have a lot to learn, and we're not naive about that. So we appreciate everything you guys have done for this. Thanks for having me today. I'm honored to speak to you all about the upcoming implementation of the HISA ADMC program. And as Lisa explained, which will be managed by the Horse Racing Integrity and Welfare Unit, HIWU as we call it. Sorry for another acronym into the industry. I have been with Drug Free Sport International my entire professional career, which is spanning 13 years now. Been in anti-doping the entire time. Prior to taking on this new role with HIWU, I managed many of our professional sport programs, including National Basketball Association, Major League Baseball, PGA Tour, and many Olympic-level organizations as well, and oversaw many of their daily operations for anti-doping. Right now, since the inception of HIWU on May 2nd, actually, when we signed this contract, I've been working on many things. The first was inheriting a set of rules that we worked really closely with the HISA ADMC committee on revising. Really proud of the rules that went to the FTC for approval and hope to have those very soon, as Lisa explained. Secondarily, been working on my team. My team right now is about 20 individuals. We're about 70% capacity, rapidly growing every day, and we have experts from many industries, including the horse racing industry, veterinary science, anti-doping programs, several of which have been part of anti-doping programs that they built themselves, training and policies, legal and investigations, and laboratory and accreditation, which really covers the expansive program that we're being asked to oversee here. My updates, include everything that we're working on, and I'll start with technology. We're really proud to implement a paperless collection technology across the industry starting January 1st. Drug Free Sport has a 22-year history of utilizing technology in anti-doping and drug testing. We were the first to create a paperless technology customized system, which we're on our third iteration, and now we'll be applying that same knowledge to this industry, and which really helps create efficiencies in the test barn, ensures uniformity across the test barns, and a trust in the process. We will also have a nationwide results management technology that we'll utilize for our team. And coming soon, in 2023, we'll have a prohibited substance database that all stakeholders can utilize and research not only banned substances but medications as well, and ask live questions to our team. We've been also working on our test distribution planning for 2023 for the first time in the industry, now a nationwide testing plan that will be uniform across the board and implemented, thinking of not individual states, but now across the nation. It'll be very intelligence-based and using investigations across the board. The volume will be in line with current industry standards. It'll be a combination of post-race, post-work, TCO2, and a real strong focus on out-of-competition testing. As Lisa mentioned, the results management and adjudication process will be uniform across the board. Under the ADMC program, HIWU will directly receive all testing results. We will notify relevant constituents and covered persons of any positive cases, and we'll manage the hearing and the arbitration processes. We'll have two different bodies that will hear these cases. For anti-doping rule violations will be what's called the arbitral body, an independent arbitral body that we're working on forming, as well as for controlled medication violations will be heard through the internal adjudication panel, which will likely be formed from current industry experts who have heard these types of cases across the nation. Lab harmonization, working on that. We're in active conversations with all 9 current accredited RMTC laboratories. We have an agreement in place for 23 to continue the RMTC accreditation process, but under our supervision. We will be implementing some new quality control processes, but most importantly, be harmonizing the way the menus that the horses will be analyzed for, ensuring that every horse is tested for the same substances across the board. Investigations. HIWU will maintain its own investigations team, and we hope to also work with state racing commissions and other groups that can help us with boots on the ground and investigations in live settings. We will also be establishing a tip line for whistleblowers starting January 1st, and it will be a great way for information to be shared with us about possible anti-doping and controlled medication concerns. And then last but not least is education. Our education initiatives have started already. Our Chief of Science, Dr. Mary Scole, has already been working with regulatory veterinarians and meeting with them on a weekly basis. I'm very pleased to announce that our website went live this morning and will be a tremendous resource for everyone, all stakeholders, to use and see educational materials that will be sent out at least weekly. And we will be out in the public. We will be speaking at multiple conferences coming up, including the AAEP meetings, as well as the Global Symposium in Arizona, and meeting with other stakeholders, both virtually and in person as needed, which includes covered persons and horsemen, state racing commissions, veterinarians, stewards, test barn personnel, and everyone else. And that's my update.
Great. Thanks, Lisa and Ben. So now we'll take any other questions you have, either for Lisa or Ben or for anyone in the group. Again, just raise your hand and we'll bring over a mic. Got a couple. And if you could identify your name and outlet, that would be great too.
Sure. Byron King, Blood Horse. So Lisa and I chatted about this actually last week, but I thought I would circle back and see if there's any updates. But this year with HISA, of course, and with the Breeders' Cup, we're going to have new riding crop regulations that are in place for the Breeders' Cup. Among those, if a jockey were to strike 10 times, a horse would be at risk of disqualification. So I was curious, especially given the international nature of the event, the communication that's taken place to get the word out to jockeys so that kind of an incident wouldn't occur.
Sure. So we've had a number of conversations with the Breeders' Cup about this. Obviously, our rule has been in place since July of this year, so certainly the American jockeys are well aware of it. We've been communicating regularly with the stewards here in Kentucky, and the stewards are obviously aware and are targeting those international jockeys to ensure that they are fully cognizant. To be fair, the international jockeys have tremendous representatives that have been talking to us and emailing us about registrations and baseline concussion exams, and they've been really, really on top of it. So I'm confident that there really is a genuine understanding of what the rules are and that we'll see compliance with them.
Very good. And then the other question, and I'll direct this to Dr. Howard, with regard to horseshoes have also been in the news quite a bit lately. Talk to me a little bit about the procedures when horses come to the paddock and how shoes are checked and approved for race day use, that kind of thing.
Sure. In our morning exams, our pre-race exams, if we note anything on a horseshoe, any type of horseshoe which may be questionable, we'll question the trainer or someone in the barn. Like many times a horse will train in one type of shoe and it'll be changed before race time. And so we will just point out that this is a type of shoe, can't which wouldn't be allowed, and ask if they're intending to change the shoes before the race. There's also a paddock blacksmith who will be checking all the horses as they come into either the assembly barn or into the paddock. I'm not sure where he's stationed, but he will be looking at those as well.
We've actually, Keeneland is going to have the blacksmith actually checking shoes in the barns on Thursday, and then they'll be checked in the assembly barn as well. And then we have a blacksmith at the paddock, and we also have one at the gate.
That's all my questions.
Frank Anks, Blood Horse, and whoever's best to answer. And very similar to Byron's question about the riding crops, but just specifically on the equipment itself, the riding crop itself, is the international aspect of this event a challenge in any way, or do the international riders readily have that equipment that meets the standards?
I can start, and then Dora can potentially add on to it. What I'll say again is that for the international riders, we've had considerable engagement with the representatives here in the U.S. who are making sure that they're ready to come and race for the Breeders' Cup. As you can imagine, this race has a tremendous amount of stature globally, so they don't take their responsibilities lightly, and we've been in conversations with them about what's required and what will be needed. So I don't see it as a challenge, at least from my standpoint, but obviously we'll let Dora answer from Breeders' Cup.
Well, that's exactly right. We've employed the International Racing Bureau for many, many years, and they have taken the lead. As soon as HISA came into effect, they immediately were very proactive on making sure that their international horsemen got registered, that the jockeys were informed of the new rules and the appropriate crop to carry. So they've been really very proactive on that, as well as Kate Hunter, our Japanese representative on the one lone Japanese runner, making sure that the trainer and the jockey are all informed and registered.
Matt Hegarty with the Daily Racing Form. I haven't been at a racetrack yet in which there was a whip violation requiring a disqualification. So what is the protocol if someone exceeds the limit as far as announcing when that disqualification would take place? Just looking for a clarification on that at this point.
Do you mean for the Breeders' Cup, or how?
For the Breeders' Cup, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it would follow essentially the same procedures that you're used to. The steward would obviously let a jockey know that there was a violation. They'd have the opportunity to review movies, obviously to go through that process of, I'm sure you all know that if a jockey uses a crop over the restricted number of times, if it's for safety, that is not a violation. So there's an opportunity to obviously explain if it's for safety. If the violation is enforced or is upheld by the stewards, then that jockey and or the owner, if there's a purse disqualification, has the opportunity to appeal it to HISA, and then that appeal is then heard by the HISA board.
Okay, so there would be an inquiry process like we normally see in the case of interference that would take place exactly after the race. The interviews would then be conducted with the jockey at that point to see if there were safety concerns, and then a disqualification would or would not be announced in the immediate aftermath of the race, correct, not after viewing films a couple days later. Correct. Is that correct?
So the stewards would then determine whether or not they are going to uphold the initial ruling. The jockey and owner have the opportunity to apply for a stay. And if that stay is granted, then there's no redistribution until there's the opportunity to be heard on appeal before the HISA board.
Okay, thank you.
It's not decided right at the time of race. Yeah. The stewards will do a review after the race is made official, potentially the next day.
Oh, so it wouldn't be decided that day?
Right.
No. Yeah.
So there could be a race where we go into Sunday and bettors find out that a horse has been DQ'd afterwards. Is that correct?
It doesn't affect pari-mutuals. Yes, that's correct, but it wouldn't have an effect on the bettors. It would only be a disqualification of purse to the owner.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, yep.
Thank you. Byron King again from the Blood Horse. I was curious for the Breeders' Cup folks, because Lisa and I already chatted about this a little bit, and she was talking about with the riding crop rules, one of the reasons why HISA opted for the potential for purse disqualification was to put another participant in the industry, the owners, for example, have them a stake in this whole thing. I'm paraphrasing what she's saying. She said it more eloquently than I just did. But I'm curious what feedback you all have gotten from owners participating in the Breeders' Cup, if they're at all worried about this possibility, or jockeys for that matter. We did have a few jockeys last year that were fined for infractions just related to CHRB rulings. But I'm curious the feedback you've gotten from owners and jockeys.
And I don't want to speak on behalf of the jockeys, but I can tell you that owners and participants that I've been talking to all week long are very supportive of HISA. So excited about the advancements, the uniformity, and I think it's important to take a step back of where we were a year ago and have a parallel to, let's say, the NFL or the MLB. Imagine if the NFL ran where there were different rules and regulations in each state. Sunday would be chaos for games because you'd have different rules, different outcomes, different adjudication. And owners, participants, breeders, they couldn't be more excited about uniform rules, regulations, and swift adjudication, which will really modernize the sport, and there's overwhelming support for this.
If I could just maybe add one more thing, just more in terms of metrics. I think it's also important for people to understand that in terms of the crop violations so far, since HISA's inception in July 1, the purse disqualifications are at about 6% of the overall violation. So of course they get more attention, but they are really a very small percentage and have been declining, very significantly. So I think there's really an overall, we've gotten to a point where there's a somewhat of an overall at least understanding of the rule and far less violations.
Any other questions from anyone? Great. Well, thank you all again for being here, and thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining. Hope everyone enjoys the Breeders' Cup and has a great week.